can check out any time you like, but you may never leave.
I've always been a believer of spirits and what have you, so I've always made it a point to learn about the hotels I've worked in, and all of the history and stories there. I've learned some crazy things, but one experience stands out the most to me. In 2015 and 2016, I worked at a hotel in Newport Beach, California. In learning more about the property's history, I learned about this event. I can't remember exactly when, but sometime in the 2000s, possibly late 90s, the hotel had a contract with Qatar Airlines, where the pilots and flight crew would stay with us after flying to John Wayne late at night. On a particularly slow night, a flight crew was checking in. The hotel put them up in slightly nicer, higher floor rooms. One pilot committed suicide in one of these nicer hotel rooms. I'll spare you the more grotesque details, but basically, he hung himself with a bed sheet from the shower curtain rod. The hotel planned to do what most hotels do after a death in a room. They closed the room for a week or so to have the room deeply cleansed by a cleaning crew, as well as to have it blessed by a local priest of sorts. That didn't necessarily happen, seeing as the room was one of the nicer rooms. The hotel ended up putting it back into sellable inventory a few short days after. A woman ended up checking into the room for about a week or so, just a few days after the incident. After a few days, the hotel had received a couple of calls from her children requesting a wellness check. They hadn't heard from their mother since she had arrived, which was extremely unlike her. The hotel followed the proper procedure for a wellness check. They confirmed she had her do not disturb sign on her door for 3+ days straight, and that her key card hadn't been used in a couple of days. When a do not disturb is on the door, typically, no one should knock or even linger in front of the door. For the wellness check, the hotel sent a security officer and one other person. I can't remember what their job was, I believe a front desk agent of sorts. The security officer approaches the door and immediately notes he can hear noise inside the room. A good sign for a wellness check. After knocking and announcing himself, he waits a few moments for the woman to answer. She never does, so he lets himself into the room and is immediately taken aback to see that every single mirror and the TV screen had all been covered by bed sheets and towels. The security officer finds the woman in the bathroom standing on the edge of the bathtub on her tippy toes, where she has moved a ceiling tile to put her head into the ceiling space. She's screaming, "He's calling me! I can hear him! I can hear him!" She's in the exact spot where the pilot had killed himself days ago. The security officer is so shaken by this, he puts in his 2 weeks that night. Now, this was more than just an embellished story hotel employees tell each other. I saw the multiple-page police report with my own eyes. When I worked there in 2015 and 2016, I always experienced little things here and there. Papers being thrown around my office, my keyring being swatted out of my hands, black figures darting out of the corners of your eyes, etc. Stuff I had just gotten used to, working in hotels, I guess. The majority of my shifts were 4 p.m. to 3 p.m. shifts, prime action time. On a slow night in particular, the hotel was extremely short-staffed. I was a food and beverage manager and had one bartender, one server, and one room service agent on shift. The kitchen had about 2 cooks and a dishwasher on shift. There was one front office / housekeeping manager, one front desk agent, one security officer, and one maintenance worker on shift as well. That's it. It was a slow night in our 400+ hotel room, like occupancy was 11% or something. Slow. Everyone enjoyed gossiping about their ghost stories that have happened to them at the hotel. So this night in particular, I had mentioned to the maintenance worker someone with an all-access key, that I wanted to go up to the room where this incident had occurred. I just wanted to see it, offer my respects, and ultimately just feel that little adrenaline rush feeling, you know? At the time, I had one of those ghost apps on my phone for extra spooky feels. The maintenance worker takes me and my server up to the room. My server refuses to enter the room and stands in the doorway, suddenly overcome with fear. She stood there and kept the door open. I don't think anyone was even staying on the floor at the time, to give you an idea of the general uneasiness felt by all of us. The maintenance worker takes me into the room and we turn the lights on and take a look around and see the exact ceiling tile where the woman would have been screaming into. In the entire room, my app kept saying light. We shrugged it off because 1, it's a silly phone app, and 2, what did light have to do with the story we had all heard? We're in the room for about 2 minutes tops, and then we head back down to continue on with our nights. About an hour later, the maintenance worker rushed up to me, a little pale. He asked me if I was playing a joke on him. I had no idea what he was talking about. The hotel had this system where if a guest called down with a maintenance request, a front desk agent would enter it into the system, and this little tablet would notify the maintenance worker on duty. The notifications were typically like this: date, time, requested by, first initial, last initial, room number, description. The maintenance worker showed me his tablet. A request had come through a few minutes before he approached me. Under the requested by section, it was absolutely blank. He had never seen this happen before. The request was for the room we had just been in. The description just said light. Not leaving my side, he radioed the first desk/housekeeping manager and asked if he'd submitted the request. Neither him nor the front desk agent had submitted anything that night. The maintenance worker explained the submission, and the front desk/housekeeping manager immediately thought we were playing a joke on him. The system can't send requests without a first and last initial. It's automatically generated by the user's login. Absolutely terrified, the maintenance worker asked me to go up to the room with him. At this point, I was a little freaked out too. We go back up to the room, just the two of us. When he opens the door and flips the light switch on, the large standing lamp in the corner it was connected to doesn't turn on. We were just in the room an hour ago and it was working. He walks over to the lamp and sees it had been unplugged. Not like maybe the plug was loose in the outlet and it fell out, kind of unplugged. It was unplugged and the cord was laying as if someone grabbed the plug, unplugged it, turned around and tossed it. He plugged the lamp back in. It turned on, and he ran out of the room with me right behind him. The maintenance worker requested 2 weeks PTO the next day. This experience sticks out to me so much just because to this day, it can't be explained how that request went through the system. We never figured out how the lamp could have come unplugged. I've seen much crazier things that can't be explained, like glasses flying off a shelf or the sound of running footsteps in an empty hallway. But this one will always stick to me. I don't know why. I just wanted to share. Have any of you had similar experiences? This happened about 3 years ago, but has really affected how I think about ghosts and the paranormal ever since. When I tell friends, some of them find it very creepy, while others say they don't believe in any supernatural things, and while it is odd, they feel there must be some other explanation. So, here goes. I took a family vacation. Me, plus parents, plus 2 siblings over Christmas. All of us were already adults at this time, and while my family is agnostic and holds out judgment for the afterlife, none of us are religious or believe that there is a true afterlife. with heaven or hell. That said, my parents thought it would be fun for us to stay at a haunted hotel in Jerome, Arizona, on our way to a resort town further down the road. This whole town is supposedly haunted, but especially the hotel, which used to be a mental hospital that has long since been converted. We checked in and are given one of the most supposedly haunted suites because we needed 2 large adjoining rooms for everyone to fit. So far, everything is normal, until we get to the room. My mum and sisters suddenly smell something they described as putrid in a spot in one of our rooms. I couldn't smell it, so I dismissed it and moved on. We took a walk around the town, and I asked a bakery owner about the haunted stories, and she said it's just accepted that sometimes things fly off her shelves at home, but nothing hostile. Here's where the weird stuff starts. We signed up for the nighttime tour of the hotel in a largish group of people, and we all are given electromagnetic readers while we walk around and hear the stories of the mental patients that died there. Halfway through the tour, my dad and sister hear a sound and turn around to see the doorknob of a room next to them rattling incessantly. I didn't personally see it, so by this time I was getting bored. I always thought it would be cool if ghosts existed, but don't really believe they can do anything to affect the physical world. I asked my other sister to take some Instagram pictures of me in a cool looking couch in one of the haunted suites, and she took some quick shots. I passed my hand over the table in front of me to pose, when I felt an extremely cold, chilling sensation in my hand/wrist and told her to stop. When I looked at the photos, I was shocked. I have a series of 3 photos where you can see that I am switching around with a startled look on my face, shaking my hand, and there is a white cloud streaking across my hand and wrist in the photos that appears and disappears throughout the 3 pictures. Needless to say, I was scared. I was no longer willing to sleep on my own, so I took the bed with my mum. Yes, I know. My dad and sisters slept a bit and went to walk around in the middle of the night in the boiler room, where they said they felt some weird stuff. I don't remember exactly what happened, but one of them felt a sudden strong chill on their back. Meanwhile, I was sleeping and my mum suddenly woke up and slammed her hand on the dresser. She said sorry and went back to sleep. She's never been a sleep mover, but whatever. I slept pretty deeply that night, but I kept being woken up by a super loud clanking/rattling in the halls that sounded like gurneys being wheeled back and forth. This is not a busy hotel, in the middle of the desert. In the morning, my family said they heard it too, but when my dad and sisters walked around, they saw nothing. My mum said she had a dream that there was a little boy and a young nurse talking to him. Then the nurse aged and became mean and scowling, and raised her hand to hit the boy. She said she then heard a voice telling her to hit him herself. This is why she hit the dresser. Keep in mind that this was a mental hospital, and one of the ghosts there is supposed to be a little boy, but no one knows why or how he died. For me, the photos were really what made me believe something was going on past explanation, and the fact that my family can confirm these happened is what makes me not dismiss it so easily. But at the same time, I don't know how to explain any of this. This happened 4 years ago, and to this day, it still gives me the creeps because of how intense it was. I'm from Southern California, and I just got married and was moving to Northern California. Before I moved, my friend and I decided we'll take a little trip to San Francisco and check out the Bay Area, since I'd be calling that home soon, and she had never been. She booked the room with 2 full beds, and she told me she got the room for a really good price, because it was during the week, and the hotel was pretty old. We drove up to San Francisco in separate cars and met at the hotel. It was a complete 180 from the pictures I saw online. It was a Victorian-era hotel, and the inside, where the front desk was completely dark and ominous looking. No windows except for the glass front doors, and mirrors everywhere. After checking in, we took the elevators to the 5th floor, and as soon as the elevator doors stopped, we were surprised at how dead silent it was, given the fact that San Francisco is extremely noisy. Our room was the very last door on the left, at the very end of the hallway. The carpet was a deep red with gold triangles. Gold-framed mirrors covered the walls. Anywhere you turned your head, you were guaranteed to see your reflection. As soon as we got to our door, she handed me the key card and quickly said, "You open it." I swiped the card and pushed the heavy door open, and it was pitch black, which was even creepier given the fact that it was 4 in the afternoon. I did the good old-fashioned put your hand against the wall and quickly look for a light switch before the monster in the room eats your hand. As soon as I hit the light switch, absolutely nothing happened. No light whatsoever. We looked at each other, and I said, "You're going in there with me." We held hands and walked into the pitch-black room and felt for light switches and lamps. Finally, I found a lamp on the desk that worked. We figured it's an old building, so some of the light switches aren't going to work. A couple of hours later, after we settled in, she and I went to go grab food and decided to go back up to our room and eat, since the drive was long and we were exhausted. I let her take the bathroom first since she wanted to take a shower. She asked me if it was okay for her to leave the bathroom door cracked open because it made her nervous closing it. As soon as she stepped in the shower, I heard the door close. I was looking at my phone and not paying attention. All of a sudden, I hear her yelling and I hear banging on the door. I hopped up out of bed and quickly opened the door and asked her why she closed it. She said she didn't close it and that the lights in the bathroom shut off as soon as the door closed. We again explained it away. Heavy door, faulty lights. I had to sit in the bathroom and make sure the door stayed open just so she could finish her shower. Once we were in bed and ready to go to sleep, we decided we'd leave the TV on since that was the only good source of light in the room, and it would help us sleep comfortably. I vividly remember having a dream of me walking through San Francisco, but it was clearly a different era. I want to say the 60s or 70s. My dream was colourful. It kind of looked like a poster from a Beatles album, and the people in the streets looked colourful and happy. I looked down at my body, and I realised it's not my body. I'm in a man's body. And quickly, the colourful streets turned grey. All the people that were colourful and smiling now looked like they were being tortured and in pain. I remember being scared and running away from these people. I could tell I was panicked and trying to get away from something. And suddenly, I woke up, and the room was dark. I thought I was still dreaming for a second because I knew for a fact we left the TV on. My eyes adjusted to the dark, and I could see my friend sleeping in the full-size bed next to mine. I turned on my right side, which was the side the only window in our room was facing, and I tried to go back to sleep. Suddenly, the room went cold. So cold I could feel it on my cheeks. Then I heard heavy footsteps coming from the front doorway towards our beds. I don't know why, but my first instinct was to pretend I was sleeping, and I quickly shut my eyes, and I stayed still. I heard the footsteps come towards my bed, which made me panic a little, and my breathing started racing, and then suddenly, I felt a heavy weight on my left side sit right behind me, so heavy that my body moved back towards the weight. It was breathing heavy and started stroking my hair. I didn't feel anything malicious from it, but I was terrified, and I remember not being able to say anything. For some reason I couldn't speak. I couldn't even move. Finally, after what felt like minutes, I found the strength to sit up, and I started yelling my friend's name. "Jessica! Jessica!" She woke up and quickly ran to the desk lamp and turned it on. I told her what happened. We looked all over the room, checked the door to make sure it was still locked, and ended up sleeping in the same bed for the rest of our stay. After the vacation, I talked to my friend about what happened, and he did some research, and it turns out the hotel we stayed in is known for being haunted. A couple of years ago, I got a job as a security officer at a resort with an indoor water park on the overnight shift. During my training there, the night manager, John, told me about how the hotel was one of the last places that a child was last seen alive before disappearing. A little later, I began to hear a loud tapping noise at one section of the resort, which sounded like someone tapping on the ductwork in the hallway. I showed one of the hotel engineers, but they were not sure what was causing the tapping sound. Not long after hearing the tapping, I was checking the hotel fire extinguishers during one shift. One extinguisher was near an emergency exit inside the lower restaurant. The exit door only had a handle on the inside of the door and couldn't be opened from the exterior. That's when there was a loud slamming sound against the door in the dark restaurant. Startled but thinking that someone was playing a prank, I opened the door to newly fallen snow, but found no footprints going to or from the door. Another time in the lower restaurant's kitchen, I was walking towards the door into the dining area when I saw something the staff reported for years. A tall shadow figure sliding along the wall through the swinging door. I turned around and walked straight back to the office. I left for a while but returned. Upon returning, my old shift partner and I started to test this entity. Likely multiple, but a bad idea no less. We would sit in the hotel's spa and wait for stuff to happen. I felt a coldness touch my elbow in one of the rooms and witnessed a shadow figure peer out from a separate room before disappearing back behind the doorframe when I noticed it. A few days later, we heard two voices, a female childlike voice and a deeper, almost demonic-like voice, and a loud set of footsteps going up the stairs, but found no one inside the entire spa after clearing it. Though it was interesting to challenge whatever permanently inhabited the hotel, it would have consequences. Fast forward a month or two, the hotel was officially closed after being bought out by a competitor. As security staff, we were given 60 days of extended employment under the law. This meant working alone in the middle of the night in an empty building with what seemed to be multiple entities. It all started with random banging sounds that echo through the halls, including the time that my old shift partner and I heard what sounded like a bowling ball falling down the stairs. Two police officers saw an old food warmer violently shake inside the lower restaurant. One refused to check on me afterwards. The same location that I would later see a floating grey mass. There were 2 times that I heard a loud, childlike scream emanating the restaurant. I never did investigate either instance as I was alone and unarmed, with no way to easily call for help. Finally, I began to see shadows inside the water park. These would show up in various locations on the child's splash tower, but one watched me start my patrols one night. After hearing a loud bang, I looked up to the slide tower to see a solid black mass. It looked like a head and a pair of shoulders, staring down at me as I walked through the park. I haven't returned to that property either, as an employee or a guest. Hello watchers and listeners. If you enjoyed that video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing. A huge thank you to all the Reddit users who allowed me to use their stories. Links to each story will be in the description below. If you have any stories you would like to share on my channel, please send them to my email, which is also in the description below. As always, a huge thank you to everyone who continues to support me. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe.